Hello. Just thought I'd do another one of these for my just non-picture book books, and this one will obviously be a lot shorter because you can see I don't have nearly as many, but we'll still have a good time, right? And you can have a little view of some of the stuff I've put on top of it and my giant blanket poster thing of Iruma from Welcome to Demon School. Really good series. Should check it out if you haven't. We can start over here with the Divine Comedy, where when you talk about all the layers of hell, purgatory, and everything, this book is pretty big for all of that, especially with the hell layers, because that's where all the monsters and scary stuff happens. But Purgatory, Purgatorio and Paradiso are really cool. They just don't have the scary hell stuff because they're a lot more optimistic and very beautiful. And honestly, I think the book is really amazing. There's a lot of translations out there because it's an ancient story, but everything, well, I shouldn't say that. Most things in here are really good and spoke to me a lot. But there are definitely some stuff that I don't entirely agree with. Plus, having all the weird little quirks of it being like a self-insert of Dante the author and Dante the character. But I think it's really amazing, and I actually first got interested in this through the old Dante's Inferno hack and slash God of War knockoff game, but that game's story is pretty bad, and this is pretty good. Over here, we have Paradise Lost, where you can tell I kind of put the more biblical stuff together. And, you know, a very classic story and a very beautiful edition, too. And, you know, more of the same of the previous book, where written by different people hundreds of years apart. But I think it's a really incredible book that gives very strong emotions, just very well written, very enjoyable, very cool. So I really love like angels and demons and heaven and hell, whether it's like religion or fiction or all of that. I just think it's really cool. And over here, you have Paradise Regained, which is unsurprisingly the next part of Lost, along with some other stuff from the author, but it's mostly for Regained because I think those are really cool. And Regained is obviously a lot shorter than this. You can just see from the thickness, but it's really cool about Jesus telling off the devil when he's trying to tempt him when he's fasting. And this was actually a random gift of the Book of Enoch. And I've never read it, but because I've always been really interested in that kind of stuff, of just like hell and heaven, whether it be in like a fantasy setting or a historical setting. I just think it's cool. So someone got that for me randomly, and I don't know, maybe someday I'll read it and, you know, see the cool stuff in it, like the behemoth and stuff like that. And here is actually one of the first novels I ever willingly read through on my own, of God's Demon, where across my younger life, I just struggled to read novels because I just did. It wasn't like a lack of ability, it's just I didn't want to. But going back to the Dante's Inferno game, I watched someone play it once and they said, hey, if you think this is cool, you should check out the book God's Demon. I'm like, oh, sure. So years later, I see it on Amazon and I'm like, you know, why not? And I buy it and the sequel, The Heart of Hell, but we'll get to that. And it uses a lot of like old words, and so I had to have like a dictionary handy, but it was an incredible experience, and I think it's a really good book. about like redemption and this really cool war in hell. It's really, really good. Took me a long time to actually read it, but when I finished it, it was just so good. You should really get to it if you haven't. And I haven't read this yet, but I'm really excited to because I loved the first book so much. And the guy who wrote it also did like these beautiful artworks because he was an artist before he wrote the books. Sorry, I just messed it up. Over here you have the Iliad and the Odyssey, this really beautiful fancy edition. And I just had to sit down. I always enjoyed Greek mythology and movies based on it, and when I saw the movie like Jason and the Argonauts, the old Harryhausen movie, I'm like, hey, I should, collect some of these classic stories just because they're cool. And you can find these like really awesome classy editions to make you look smart. Over here we have The King in Yellow, which is a really cool Lovecraft inspiration, made up of several short stories that some of them tie into this play called The King in Yellow. And it's really cool. It's just, if you go really deep into it, you got to talk about each part of it, and that'll take too long. And this is actually the second book I've bought of The King in Yellow, because the first one I bought was a cool hardcover edition, but it didn't have all the short stories. It just had the ones directly tying into the fictional play within the world. Or, it's fictional for us, not for them. And I wanted all the book, call me crazy like that, so I bought this one. It's pretty cool. I haven't read this yet either, but Lost Gods, I just thought it looked and the description was cool. Plus, it kind of reminded me of God's Demon. Over here we have Dead Space Martyr, and I haven't read that one yet, but I kind of know the basics of what happens, because Dead Space, the first one, is my favorite horror game ever, and 2 is really good, 3 is okay, and I haven't played the Wii game, but when I learned about there's movies and books around Dead Space, I'm like, hey, that'd be fun to try out for fun. So I haven't read this yet, but it's really cool. For here we have the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft, who, if you watched my first video, I'm a really big fan of Lovecraftian horror. And a lot of Lovecraft stories aren't necessarily the best, but his style and everything is just really cool. And he mostly did short stories. So to have just everything in this perfect, beautiful book is just really awesome. Over here, we have Grimm's Fairy Tales, a complete collection where not a lot of need to explain this, just some of the classic old fairy tales that we think about, just in their original pure form. And that's really, really cool. And here you have the guy Disney owes a lot of their success to, Hans Christian Andersen. They adapted a lot of his works. Again, not a lot of need to explain, but really, really cool. And these books are gorgeous right next to each other. Over here, you have a really cool art book of H.R. Giger, where even if you haven't heard his name, you've probably seen his influence, where he's the one who made the iconic look of the xenomorph. Excuse me. And the works of the Alien movies until they got kind of bad. And his artwork really speaks to me because it's like a combination of horror, like human anatomy and machines, usually in a very sexual context. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of comforting knowing someone else kind of thought the way you did, and they're able to express these emotions and feelings in art. And his art is really incredible if you have the stomach for it. You have this cool edition of Lord of the Flies I bought on a sale. This was a book a lot of people read in school. I didn't have to. And when I saw this, I'm like, oh, that's a good excuse to read it. Plus, it just looks really cool on the shelf. And we have The Hellbound Heart, which was the source of Hellraiser, which is another really good horror movie. Not a ton to say, but Clive Barker, really good author, really freaky, scary story. And you have Uncovering Egyptian Mythology, where out of all the mythologies out there, like the Egyptian gods and legends was always the coolest to me. I really loved a show as a kid called Tuttenstein. It's like an educational kind of show where you followed a young pharaoh, and ever since then I was just always so interested in Egyptian mythology and everything. And if you look way over there, you can even see I have an Anubis up there. He's my boy. And I won't pull all these out individually, but this was just a lot I bought of some Bionicle books, because Bionicle is awesome. And I've never read any Bionicle books. I just thought they'd be fun to have, because I have the Bionicle movies. I loved them so much as a kid. And you can see they're not even, like I'm missing several there. It just skips to 7. But they're cool to have. And maybe someday I'll, excuse me, get the rest. Over here you have James and the Giant Peach, which was the first time I ever read a book and then watched the movie back in 3rd grade. And that was really, really cool. Because maybe I said it wrong earlier, but I had like read word books like a lot through my childhood. Just most of the time it was because I was forced to, and that was like the first like really wordy novel I read willingly. But the book's great and the movie's great, really good. Get a cameo from Jack Skellington in the movie. Over here you have the Epic of Gilgamesh. I just kind of bought that because I love like classic stories of adventure and gods and demons and all that crazy stuff. So I'm excited to read that. Over here you have Berserk the Flame Dragon Knight. You know, kind of a prequel-ish thing about one of Griffith's new servants. So that's cool, even though Griffith sucks. And these books, I don't know if I'll bother to really show the front of them, because I kind of work with a thrift store, and sometimes they throw away stuff and I'll just get it for free. So sometimes I'll just save things if I think they look cool. Like the white dress, don't know if that's worth anything or not. Or this really fat one of the House of Chains. It looks cool. Same for that and that. Over here, there's more to talk about, though, of, you know, these really obscure books I'm sure none of you know about. Like, honestly, crazy. But, you know, again, not a ton to say, but some of the greatest books ever made. All of them. And you can see this one is a lot nicer than these, because I got these from that thrift store, but I bought this one new, just so I could have the set of this specific release. And they're really cool. I was actually terrified of Lord of the Rings as a kid, because when the movies came out, I was really young, so just everything scared me. And then when the Hobbit trilogy of movies came out, I remember I'd have passionate arguments with my sister of, she said the Gollum from the animated Lord of the Rings was scarier, and I said it was like from the live action movie. But you know, just really, really good books, just classic, good, amazing books. That one I just saved. Over here, we have some of my Predator books, or Concrete Jungle. This was like the original Predator 2. You know, tying more directly into the first movie, where you follow Arnold's character's brother. and how the predators show up, you know, in a big city and start causing trouble. And that one was pretty good. I wouldn't call it amazing. I like the Predator 2 movie better. Over here you have Predator Cold War, about some predators showing up in Russia. Not a ton to say, that one was kind of boring. Alien Steel Egg, yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? Just kind of skim by these because not a lot to say currently. Predator Flesh and Blood. Predator, the movie, is my favorite movie, so of course I grabbed some of the novels. AVP Hunter's Planet. She's kind of cute. And you have this really worn out one of AVP Prey. Another great cover. I have a lot of Alien vs. Predator comics too, but I keep those with my comics, so they won't be shown here. Aztec Blood, I just saved that. Clive Cusser, I just saved that. Mass Effect Revelation, which you can see I've been reading a little bit, because I love Mass Effect, and I thought this would be fun to read about a prequel series with Anderson. Love Anderson, he's cool. Just saved that one, saved that one. Great cover though, look at that. That's classic fantasy there. Yeah. A lot of these books I honestly just saved because I was really bad about just reading, so I didn't actively collect and keep a lot of books. But I do actually have something to say about this one, Pillaged, where my 3rd grade teacher was reading this for us, and it's really cool from what I remember. Like, this was like a gift years ago of like, now I actually have the book I loved, but I need to like sit down and reread it to see if it's any good. But, you know, very fun memories. I remember it was that book, Where the Red Fern Grows, and Summer of the Monkeys. And I liked all of them. It's just Where the Red Fern Grows, that just made me really sad. Summer of the Monkeys, I cared less because, you know, I'm not a big monkey fan. Ugh. But yeah, there's a brief run through of my word books. You know, hope you enjoyed. Maybe see you next time.